What is up, everybody? We are going to take a look this week at Prize Picks Week 2 and what they're offering on the CFB board today. So they just dropped a whole slew of Saturday action, but they've yet to update any of their fantasy point offerings. I know that that's usually the one that I like the most, but I wanted to make sure that we got things out pretty quick for you guys. So we'll jump right in with what they have for now. And then if you guys have any questions later on, feel free to hop in the Discord and discuss and ask them some questions. And we will try our best to handle those as they come in. So we look at passing yards first here. A few jump out here. So Shador Sanders, 315.5. That is going to be one that I will likely be playing the under on. Shador obviously over 400 yards passing last week against TCU. I just feel like Nebraska, one, they're going to try and slow the game down. And two, Colorado's not sneaking up on anybody this week. I really think that Nebraska's got a pretty decent shot at keeping this Colorado team in check. Now, they have athletes galore. Colorado also had a huge number of just explosive plays. Even if Nebraska still allows the efficiency that Colorado had in terms of completion percentage and number of receptions allowed, I still don't think that they're going to have as many big plays as they had against TCU. So 315.5 is a lofty number to hang out here. So I'm definitely taking the under on Shador this week. I'll plug him in over here just so that we can keep a tally of ones that I like. We said less on him. We've got Michael Pratt and Connor Weigman. Both of these lines are pretty healthy. We know Pratt is likely going to have some success either on the ground or through the air, so I hate to really lock into his passing yard overage here because he could just be more efficient on the ground this week. Weigman, 244.5 against Miami. If I had to take it, I'd take the under. I know that in our DFS video, our breakdown of the slate for DraftKings this week, I mentioned that the C2C winning edge, Nicholas Allen, has offered some office hours on the C2C Discord for his C2C winning edge subscribers. And I asked him this week about defenses that he wanted to fade against or that he thought had the potential to be defenses you want to fade against. And he said Miami was one that was up there. So I'm a little bit hesitant on Weigman. I don't know if I'm confident enough to take that under, but that's definitely well in play on the board for me this week. Other options, Austin Reed up here, 320.5 on passing yards. Obviously, Western Kentucky, we know they love to throw the ball. Houston Baptist, FCS competition. There is just a little bit of pause, though, in this number because it's so high, and we think Western Kentucky probably should have this wrapped up by the third quarter. I think it's too sharp of a line right now. If I had to take one, I'd take the under, personally. Hope that maybe they either rest Reed at the end of the game or, just aren't as prolific through the air as they usually are. Maybe they get a defensive touchdown or something against Houston Baptist. Who's to say? But, yeah, big line on him. I would take the under if I had to. Quinn Ewer is another guy here. I am going to go less than this week at 269.5. Playing Bama, he obviously is going to need to be on for Texas to win this game. I could see him surpassing that number, but I think more often than not, he is not going to. I think Bama is going to try and ground the ball, going to try and really control the clock, keep Texas's offense off the field, and wear out the defense. So I think Quinn Ewer is under 269.5. It was at 272.5 earlier. So that is moving in this direction. So I would take the under there. Let's go up here and check out some options at rushing yards. Actually, let's hop over to pass the INTs since we're looking at quarterbacks. Luke Altmaier at 0.5 passing interceptions. I think that Illinois is throwing the ball a little bit more this year. I think Altmaier is a capable quarterback, and I don't think Kansas's defense is anything to be scared of. I would probably take the under on that, to be honest, but it is not one of my plays that I am personally playing this week. So take that for what you will. Altmaier again here, now that we're going over to rushing yards, he's at 24.5. All of these Illinois rushing numbers are interesting. Reggie Love at 62.5. I would go under on that and feel pretty confident about it. Feel most confident about Josh McCray here at 52.5, taking over or taking more rushing yards for him. I think he should have the ability to really wear out this Kansas defense. Devin Neal is also a guy who I'm interested on Friday's slate. I would be playing the under. Kansas has rotated running backs pretty thoroughly last year and this year. I think they continue to do that. And so Illinois' defense is traditionally pretty stout, pretty solid against the run. So 74.5 is a lot to expect from Devin Neal. So I would take the under on that one if you're playing in Friday's action. What else do we have here? Jeff Sims, Travion Henderson. Don't feel great about either of those numbers. Michael Pratt at 32.5. I am taking the over on this week. I think that there is a really solid rushing floor for him. I think this line bakes into the estimation that he's going to get sacked a few times. But I think that he has the ability to really escape the pocket and to put Ole Miss on their heels a bit. So I'm taking the over on 32.5. Jace McClellan at 54.5. I kind of like that one. I like some of these other lines better, but I'm not afraid of that 54.5. I think that he can get home on that against Texas. And then some huge numbers here for Marcus Carroll at Georgia State and Damian Martinez, both of them over 100 yards. 102.5 for Carroll and 105.5 for Martinez. Martinez, I think he was just cramping up in that week 1 matchup against San Jose State. But he did miss some snaps and did cede some work to Deshaun Fenwick. 105.5. Obviously, he's the kind of guy who can get this in, 3 possessions. But if he's not breaking a big one and we see some shuffling around, we see DJU get some run game, 105 is a lot to ask for. Marcus Carroll was up to 105.5. He's been bet down to 102.5. Against UConn, and knowing that Darren Granger is likely going to be getting some work, maybe you expect KZ Adams to see a little bit more share than he saw in week 1. Then I can see betting the under on Carroll, but both of those guys are pretty strong bets to go over the 100-yard mark. Looking at passing and rushing combined lines, we've got Altmaier, Sims, and Milroe with lines up currently. This Jeff Sims line is probably the one that interests me the most, but I would still go under on that. I think 248.5. It really depends on how you view Colorado and what you think this game is going to do. I don't think Nebraska is going to have to throw the ball that much. I think they're going to have a lot of success on the ground. Distribution-wise, a lot of that could be Jeff Sims, though. So keeping that in mind and knowing that he could have a big day on the ground, I just don't think he's going to be passing the ball enough to be able to hit that mark. But, if you think it's going to be a shootout and Jeff Sims is going to have to sling the ball, that makes sense. That line does seem pretty sharp. Receiving yards now for the final category to take a look at. If you're playing on Friday, Isaiah Williams, 57.5. I did say that I think Illinois is going to be throwing the ball a lot more this year and under Altmaier. 57.5 though for Isaiah Williams, who usually gets some low ADOT stuff and has a little bit more competition than in years past. I would take the under if I'm playing that one. It's not my favorite play of the week, but it's one that I'm considering. Jamal Banks, 72.5 receiving yards. That seems pretty sharp. If I were forced to play, I'd say under, but the depth chart came out this week with him and Wesley Grimes listed as an or. That being said, they were both the most productive receivers last week. So it may be a situation where both of them are going to be on the field at the same time. And it just depends on the set that they're in and how they're necessarily going to run that out. So I don't feel super confident in the under, but I would go with the under if you were looking for that play. McGowan and Shepard. I like the over for McGowan for sure. Shepard, I think Vanderbilt's going to have to throw to keep up with Wake this week. 59.5 seems pretty doable. McGowan, the leader in targets on that offense. I believe he had 8 in week 0 and then 11 or 12 last week. But Skinner was injured, I believe, for at least some of the time last week. If we're expecting him back, that's something to consider. But I still like the over on Jaden McGowan there. Harrison and Mbuka, it's hard to trust either of them with what we saw out of Kyle McCord and Devin Brown last week. I'm staying away from those guys. Jaquan Jackson and Lawrence Keys. I'm probably going to take the under here on Jaquan Jackson. I love Jaquan Jackson's outlook just in general for this season, but I really did think that he was going to get a little bit more of a wide receiver 1 role in this offense. Tulane has shown for a few years now that they don't really have an alpha with their receivers. They distribute the ball very efficiently with Michael Pratt. Part of being a good quarterback means that you can elevate all receivers and you don't rely on one. And so that's just what's at play at Tulane. Jackson at 53.5. I'd be curious to see what kind of fantasy point line he has this week because I do think he's a better option at getting a touchdown than not. So if there is an option to get fantasy points on him, I would prefer that for sure. Evan Stewart's line here is at 63.5. That's been brought down quite a bit. I believe we were looking at 72.5 a little bit earlier this week. So seeing that move in this direction is interesting to say the least. It's getting to a point where I may not be fully on board with taking the under. I don't like the under quite as much as I originally did there. Let's see what else we have. Some pretty solid lines on Lachey and Corley. Corley obviously left the game last week with an injury. They're saying it was just a bruise and that he is back and good to go. Taking the under, though, on an FCS game coming off a game where he missed some time, they may be easing him back and looking to establish some rapport with Austin Reed and some other options. I know you hate to take an under on a game where Corley theoretically should eat, but there are a few, just weird data points on this. If they do pull away quickly, just like we talked about with Austin Reed, the under could be viable there. We've got a lot of Texas and Bama lines here, none that really jump out at me. And then wrapping up with Robert Lewis and Anthony Gould. I think those are pretty on the money. Anthony Gould, Gould and Lewis both big play opportunities. So even if they're not getting insane volume, especially Gould didn't get big volume against San Jose State, but he does have big play capability and is playing worse opponents this week. So I feel pretty good about what's in there right now. We have Jaquan Jackson less than 53.5 receiving yards. We've got Michael Pratt with over or more 32.5 rushing yards. Josh McCray Friday night action more than 52.5 rushing yards. Quinn Ewers against Bama less than 269.5 passing yards. And then we've got Shedeur Sanders against Nebraska. I'm saying less than 315.5 passing yards. So thank you guys for checking this out. If you have any questions, if there's anything that you're curious about or just want to talk some shop in the Discord, drop a message for us. But we are glad to have you along this ride for our DFS content this year. And we look forward to another great week. Thanks, guys.